Good morning and welcome to the Thursday, January 11th Land Use Meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We begin our meetings with an invocation, and today Commissioner Geithner will lead us in that. If you would like to join, please do so.
Our dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather today and to represent the people of El Paso County. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we make decisions today. We also pray that you will watch over every citizen of El Paso County. Lord, we also ask you to be with the legislators and policymakers that are gathered for the second day today in our Capitol, to give them wisdom as well as they represent and make policy for all of Colorado. We thank you for the folks that are here today and who are participating in this process. And we pray safety for everyone as they travel to and from this building. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Commissioner Gonzalez, would you please lead us in the pledge? Thank you, Commissioners. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is staff emergency items, and I'm unaware of any staff emergency items today.
Item number 4.
Item number 4 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. I'm unaware of any changes or postponements to today's agenda, and the next meeting will be Tuesday, January 16th at 9 o'clock a.m.
Item number 5.
Item number 5 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. This is the public's opportunity to speak on an item that is not scheduled on today's agenda, and Madam Chair didn't have anyone sign in ahead of time.
Okay, no one is signed in ahead of time for public comment, but I will ask if there is anyone here to speak on an item not on today's agenda. So please let us know. Okay, no one in the audience, anyone online? Okay, item number 6.
Item number 6 is a land use consent calendar consisting of items 6A and 6B.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on any item on the consent calendar? Hearing none in the room and none online. Discussion and/or motions from the commissioners.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
That has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The consent calendar passes 5-0. Item number 7.
Item number 7 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up.
That brings us to item number 8.
Item number 8 is the variance of use 15080 West Chaparral Loop, a request by Zach Gaddy for approval of a variance of use on 10.58 acres to allow a second dwelling in the RR5 Residential Rural District. The property is located at 15080 West Chaparral Loop, approximately half a mile from the intersection of East Chaparral Loop and Wagon Trail. The use variance was heard as a regular item at the December 7th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing. Citizens spoke in opposition to the item. Discussion included a past subdivision attempt, future accessory dwelling unit code amendment, floodplain impacts, and increased density. The Planning Commission recommended approval with a vote of 8-1. Parcel number 313-200-2004, Commissioner District 2, File VA233, Ashlyn Matthey, Planner 1, Planning and Community Development.
Okay.
And
One moment.
thank you very much. At this point, we would usually move straight to the staff presentation, which looks to me like we're having a font conversion issue.
Would you be agreeable to me going through the PowerPoint as such, since when I tried to do the presentation, it changed the font?
You know what? Yes, let's just keep it on this screen and you can go through it like this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do apologize. Okay. Hello, my name is Ashlyn Matthey. I'm a planner on this project and with El Paso County Planning and Community Development. The project before you today is VA233 33, this is 15080 West Chaparral Loop, variance of use. My name is Ashlyn Matthew. I was the planner on this, and Carlos Hernandez was our review engineer. Public input. If you are watching remotely and have not yet provided a name and a reliable phone number, please email that information to pcdhearings@elpasoco.com. Before us is the criteria of approval. This is going to be from section 5.3.4, approval criteria for variance of use. This is going to be 2 slides. When the first slide has been read through, I can move forward to the second slide. For our Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission motion was recommended for approval 8-1. The one vote that we had that was not in favor of this was due to concerns over the permanency of the variance of use and a subdivision in the floodplain. The item was heard as a regular item at our December 7th Planning Commission hearing, and neighbors did attend to discuss their opposition. Some of the reasons that were discussed at Planning Commission were increasing the density, water sufficiency concerns, losing the character of the area, and setting a precedent within this neighborhood. The request before you today is from Zachary Gaddy for the approval of a variance of use for a second detached dwelling unit, and his property is 10.58 acres and it is zoned RR5. The second dwelling is anticipated to become the primary residence, and then the current residence that will become the second dwelling would then be used for a family member, and in the future is looking to be rented out. So the property is going to be outlined in black right here, and then I have another vicinity map on the next slide. And so this is going to show you it's going to be out in Peyton, north of Highway 24. We do have RR5 zoning with PUD, and then some more agricultural zoning surrounding. The next slide is the exhibit. So I have zoomed out is the property with the existing dwelling down here, and then the proposed dwelling up here, and then I have a zoomed in snapshot next to it just so you can see a little better what we're anticipating at this property. For the dimensional standards for the RR5 zoning district, the minimum acre size is going to be 5 acres. The minimum setbacks, we have front, side, and rear being 25 feet. Your maximum lot coverage is 25% with the maximum height of 30 feet. And then some of the notes that were in association with this is in the event that the land is partitioned, platted, zoned, or sold, if it abuts a section line county road, the minimum lot area of the lots abutting the road shall be 4.75 acres and with a minimum width of 165 feet. Additionally to that, we have agricultural stands shall be a setback minimum of 35 feet from all property lines. For the master plan place type, this area is designated for large lot residential. So in this area, we would anticipate to see single family homes, minimum lot sizes of 2.5 acres or more. We would additionally see larger lots that are there to preserve the natural area. With that being said, this place type does support accessory dwelling units. Even if there is a separation from the home, we still want to see a fostering of a sense of community in this area. Area of change, we will see area of change as undeveloped, with minimal change undeveloped, I'm sorry. The character is you're typically going to see a lack of development, and we'll see a lot of significant and large rural or natural features in this area. These areas will experience some redevelopment, but we expect that it won't stray from the character of the area. And if there is new development, overall, we're still wanting to see a preservation towards rural and natural areas. The next slides will be engineering, so I will bring up Carlos.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Hernandez. I'm an engineer with the Department of Public Works. I'll go ahead and just discuss drainage, erosion, as well as transportation. So on your drainage and erosion slide, drainage and bridge fees are not assessed with non-planning items. Less than 1 acre of land disturbance is expected with this request, so therefore no grading and erosion control plan was required. The property is located near a floodplain zone A. However, the site is outside of that floodplain. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? Thank you.
Sure. All right, as far as transportation goes, the property obtains access off of Chaparral Loop West, which is a county-maintained rural local roadway. Per the applicant's letter of intent, the property will generate about 20 trips per day with the addition of this second dwelling. The applicant did apply and obtain driveway access permits for both of those driveways. No roadway improvements are required at this time, and the proposed dwelling will be subject to El Paso County road impact fees per resolution 19-471. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 20 trips a day, is this just purely residential? Seems,
Yes, so on average, a single-family dwelling is about 10 trips per day. So
okay,
with the addition of the new dwelling, that'd be another 10, so that'd be 20.
okay,
And
thanks.
that,
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
kind of to just, I guess, clarify a little on that, trip per day is, how do you call it, is defined as a going in and out. So that'd just be about like in total per single family dwelling, like a family leaving and then coming back to their home 5 times a day on average. So any other questions?
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. You don't need to go back to the previous chart, but the drainage and erosion, when you're no problem going back. When you're characterizing that, is that an indicator of the 100-year floodplain? Is that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then we had a lot of rain in the spring. I just was kind of interested, were there any challenges with the water staying within that 100-year floodplain, or did it exceed that? And, if it did exceed it, where did it go? And I don't even know if we have that data available, but I'm asking the question.
Yeah, so since it's a flood zone A, it's an unstudied floodplain, so we have no data right now.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
For the hearing notifications from staff, 8 neighbors had been notified of the upcoming hearings on 11/21/23. At the Planning Commission hearing is where we had various neighbors attend and they spoke in opposition. And for the applicant information, the owner and representative is Zach Getty with the current address for the property.
Excellent. Is the applicant present?
Yes. So the format with the PowerPoint for his isn't working quite well, so I was just going to leave my PowerPoint up and he could kind of go off of this today.
That works for me.
Say that again?
That works.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Good morning. My name is Zach Gaddy. I am the owner of the property. And as far as everything else here, it's a little bit different, but we'll kind of go through and answer any questions that we might have. Long story short, we have a little bit over 10.5 acres on our property. Currently, our current home is on the southeast corner of that property. And we'd like to build a secondary property on the northern half of that property on the other side of the floodplain. in a sense, the property is kind of designated based off a large hill, and then it drops down through the floodplain and then rises up fairly quickly again on the northern half. Let's see here. As far as the use for the current home, we have a family member that is in need. She is kind of a tough situation with her ex-husband that she's currently living with, and we're trying to give her some respite so she can kind of get back on her feet, and then naturally, whenever she's back on her feet, we'd like to be able to use that home and rent it out to make our life a little bit easier and more affordable. Give me one moment here. Would it be okay if I pulled out my phone for additional information? Okay, thank you.
And if there's something you need to display, I think you can, generally the overhead projector will pick up
Okay,
anything on the phone.
perfect. As far as the proposed home, we're looking at basically a barndominium styled home to kind of fit the country theme per se of the neighborhood. We are looking at a home, sorry, this is not zooming in for me, roughly 2,800 square feet in total, and that includes the garage and everything else, as well as a basement that will be unfinished. As far as the total footprint, we should be expecting about 4,500 of a total impacted footprint as far as the land is concerned, and that includes the driveways and everything else. Commissioner, to answer your question as far as the floodplain this year, naturally I was there when that rain came through. If we look at this map here, we actually saw it for the first time. It was pretty incredible. The water stayed down in the lower channel all the way through and escaped this way and headed basically west and then south from there. The water at its peak was about 4 feet deep and about 5 feet wide. And it stayed in the lower channel and definitely stayed within that floodplain. I would say the floodplain in its most is probably an extra 25 feet wide on both sides from where the water actually went. And honestly, it was a sight to behold, but at the same time, it was good to know exactly where that water would go in the event that we do get to build a house in this scenario. See here. As mentioned on the transportation side of things, I don't think there will be a lot of impact on the transportation side of things. We should be seeing very limited traffic in that neighborhood. As the commissioner, or as we previously mentioned, myself, my wife, and I'll have 2 kids that'll eventually be driving. That equals about 20 trips between the 2 households. I could see that very easily. I believe that's all I have for you, unless you have additional questions.
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's the square footage of the existing home?
It is 1,521 square feet.
Any further questions for the applicant at this time? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Was there any questions for staff?
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Gonzalez, are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so I have one question. Actually, I'll save it for after the public comment.
Okay. Well, thanks for that introduction. We will head now into the public input section of this hearing. Thank you very much. And we will begin with those in support of this application. Can I just get a quick show of hands? Are there any in the room in support of this application? Okay, any online? Well, seeing none in support here in the audience, we'll go on to those in opposition. Are there any in opposition of this application here in the room today? And any online? Okay. Usually at this point, there is an opportunity for the applicant to provide a rebuttal to anything that was brought up during public testimony. You are welcome to address us kind of with some final closing comments. We'll close the public hearing and begin our deliberations up here. Thank you.
I will address there's been some questions as to why I didn't go about the subdivision route. I did initially start that in 2019. Just to answer that question, long story short, with the floodplain in place, I had to reach out to FEMA and try to get a LOMAR. Sadly, it was right before COVID hit and everything else, so it took FEMA 2 years to get back to me to even start the conversation, at which point we pretty much buried that idea. And it kind of put this into the back of our mind as to the next step forward. And on top of that, when I reached out to engineers to help me figure out the LOMAR and everything else, they explained the process through FEMA and that it could cost potentially up to $50,000, which was not within my budget. Not to say that this was much cheaper, but at the end of the day, we are just trying to build a secondary home to help my family, and we have no plans on moving or leaving anytime soon. I'm very involved in the Peyton community, as well as my wife. She works at the school district. I coach basketball at the Peyton school there, and we want to continue to just be a part of that community and help that community be the great community that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I will close the public hearing part of this item. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in my district, and so I will just say this seems like a very reasonable application to me. As we look and continue to talk about the cost of living increases and the things that people are seeing, it's not a huge surprise to me that we have folks who are looking to provide and utilize situations like this to create something, whether from a family member or to generate some income to help offset rising costs. And I think this is a very reasonable application, and I think it meets all the criteria. I have no concerns, so I would move approval of this item with all notations and conditions.
I'll second.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm supportive of this for a couple of reasons. One, I think it generally meets all the criteria, or does meet the criteria, particularly since it's greater than the 10 acres. And so the subdivision would have come up with it being a zone for RR5. And I greatly appreciate the rationale for why you prefer not to do it that way. If this had been smaller than 10, I would, from my past histories, would have brought up some issues with the reversal of moving into the larger home and using the second home. I think I've previously voted against something like that in the past. But I do want to, for public transportation or transparency purposes, I saw the comment about precedent. I believe that we may be looking at revising some policies where this may be the norm, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. We haven't voted on that, but for public transparency, I'm going to put that out there, that this is something that may become the norm. And if it comes forward, again, good, bad, I have no idea, but public input will be requested and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I will follow up those comments as well with just the appreciation for going through the proper process on this. That is, it makes everyone's job easier. Hopefully your relationships with your neighbors easier. And I'm just grateful when people are actually following what is intended by the limited policies that are in place. Any other comments? Okay, with that, there has been a motion and a second, and I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Congratulations. Is staff ready to move on to item number 9, or do we need a quick break? Okay. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is a map amendment rezone, Overlook at Homestead rezone, a request by PT Overlook LLC for approval of a map amendment rezoning of 350.83 acres from A35 agricultural to RR5 residential rural. The property is located 1/2 mile north of the intersection of Elbert Road and Sweet Road and 1/2 mile south of the intersection of Elbert Road and Hopper Road. The map amendment was heard as a regular item at the December 7th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing. Citizens spoke in opposition to the item. Discussion was focused on compatibility with the existing and permitted land uses and zone districts in all directions. The Planning Commission recommended approval with a vote of 8-1. Parcel numbers 4100000255, 256, and 4122000005. Commissioner District Number 2, File P235, Kylie Bagley, Planner 3, Planning and Community Development.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kylie Bagley with the Planning Department. So the application in front of you is titled Overlook at Homestead Rezone. The engineer on the project was Ed Schoenheit. So if you have any questions, he'll be up later to present those engineering issues. In front of you is the criteria for a map amendment rezone. I will just leave it in front of you to read over and then let me know when I can proceed to the next slide. This case was heard in front of the Planning Commission on December 7th, 2023. The Planning Commission did recommend approval with a vote of 8-1. The criteria that was cited for the nay vote was that the subject property would not be compatible with the existing and permitted land uses in zone districts in all directions if the rezone were to be approved. So the request in front of you is a rezone from A35 agricultural to RR5 residential rural. The subject property does encompass 350.83 acres. As you can see, it's outlined in black right here on your screen. Again, here's just a more zoomed out image of the property. It is directly adjacent to PUD zonings, RR5 to the south, and then the A35 in green as well. So the map amendment is to RR5 is generally consistent with the existing properties in the surrounding area. The PUD, which I showed earlier, that is directly to the west, does allow for a minimum lot size of 3.2 acres. And then as you can see, this is just the existing A35 zoning district requirements, and then these are the RR5. So some of the big differences is that RR5 is 1 unit per 5 acres for the maximum density. It does have a minimum lot size of 5 acres, where A35 was a minimum lot size of 35 acres. The setbacks are the same, and then RR5 does have a maximum lot coverage of 25%, where A35 does not have a maximum lot coverage. The master plan place type is the rural place type. And I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from that. So it does say residential lot development within the rural place type typically covers 35 acres or more per 2 units, with the minimum lot area consisting of 5 acres per unit. So the proposed map amendment is consistent with the recommended density of the rural place type. So for the master plan area of change, the character of the surrounding area is consistent with the area of change designation, which identifies that existing vacant land may be developed in the future. It is designated as minimal change undeveloped. So since the subject property is surrounded primarily by developed land, it is unlikely that the character of the area may change substantially in the future. And then I'd like to invite Ed Schoenhind up to go over drainage and transportation.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Ed Schoenheit, Department of Public Works. Just to go over a couple quick things. Just realize this is for the rezone, so there's still multiple submittals that will come in for the development of this area. So as far as the drainage goes, there's another submittal that's in, but it's only had preliminary comments come back. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but that was a lot of comments that came back from public review and neighbors about the drainage itself. So I'll only mention that in brief. So area is not within a floodplain. It's in Zone X. The parcels in itself are across 3 different drainage basins. So there are some different drainage areas within that, but they're all unstudied. And so the drainage analysis that will come through for the plat submittal and the drainage report will go into more detail as far as how the drainage is going to work. But we had provided some initial comments back. They do have initial plans to do detention basins and water quality for the development itself. So they're on the right track in that regard. So, but they do have more work to do as far as the submittals go. And that will be reviewed through a different submittal itself. So any other questions specifically on drainage?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to kind of be clear here, so it doesn't require the report now, but if for some reason they found that some of those areas for drainage could not be built on, the developer would not be able to put lots of land, the actual lots on that area.
Right. Between the drainage report and then the geotechnical report would come in with any limitations and constraints and which couldn't be mitigated by engineering methods and construction techniques, and that would be a choice at that point that they'd have to make as far as what lots potentially were not buildable at that point. So
thank you.
Any further drainage questions?
There was also additional comment on public comment as far as transportation goes. The new planned development area is off of Elbert Road, which is county maintained paved major collector road. Now it's classified as a major collector. There are some shortfalls with the cross section of the road itself. The road isn't over capacity as far as the amount of ADT traffic that's currently on the road itself, but the cross section of the road is a little bit narrow. The initial analysis that was done through the traffic impact study showed that a secondary point of access would be needed, and which is planned for the development to add a second access point about a half-mile south of Apex Ranch Road. Based on the analysis of the traffic, turn lanes were not required for those 2 entrance points based off the county criteria. Through the county review, we did identify some improvements needed at the entrances, which we're still in discussions with, and we will be further review that during the plat and the construction drawing phase as well. But really just some improvements to improve the entrances so the traffic can enter and exit out of those intersections a little bit easier. So that was one of the things that we identified. Traffic and road impact fees are applicable. And one of the other comments that was also brought up from public input was construction access through the existing Apex Ranch Road. That's something that we can address during the plat submittal, the construction drawings, and the grading and erosion control plan for where the heavy construction access would come through. And, in concert and cooperation with the developer as far as maybe using that secondary access that they're going to build for maybe some of the initial heavy construction traffic into the development itself. So, but that can be definitely worked out in the later phases. Any additional questions for transportation?
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Okay, so you said it's overused already?
Elbert Road is not being overused. It's not over capacity as far as
I thought you said it was.
No, it's not. Yeah,
it's not. Okay.
It's just the cross section of the road for the classification is narrower than it should be. The pavement width is narrower, and it doesn't have any shoulders.
Okay, no, thank you. I thought you said the other thing. Okay,
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Any further questions on transportation? Commissioner Vanderwerf.
So thank you. Maybe just as a quick follow-on to that, I think what I thought I heard you say is that the road is overbuilt and has plenty of excess capacity, so it wasn't overused but overbuilt. Am I accurate?
Overbuilt would say that, if it was based on the classification of a collector roadway, maybe we had an arterial roadway class or cross-section where the road was wider, the pavement road width was wider, we had shoulders, and it was wider than it currently is. But based on the usage of the road and its classification, the actual pavement width is narrower than it should be. But the actual amount of traffic hasn't exceeded the capacity of the road itself. It's just one of those situations where the roads were built out, years ago, and now we've got additional traffic on there. It doesn't mean that traffic can't pass. Doesn't mean there's not delays in the traffic, but as far as the road engineering, the design, and having shoulders, it's not built to the standards of what it's being used for. So
Thank you.
and
Any further questions?
Okay, so based on that, will the future development pay for it if there's a need to widen those roads to make it meet what we believe are the standards?
So as far as the development goes, we had only identified the improvements at the intersections. Turn lanes weren't required based on the traffic counts for that roadway. The road itself, as far as improvements, whether that was going to be done through the MTCP program or the PPTRA, is something that would still have to be fleshed out. They're updating the MTCP right now, but it's not identified as a project for the PPTRA right now.
So I'm not sure if that answers my question. So if this development creates a need to improve the road, will the county have to pay for that improvement, or will the development pay for that improvement?
Good morning. Sorry. Elizabeth Nijkamp, Deputy County Engineer, Department of Public Works. We haven't quite identified every need for this road, but I do believe, Ed can correct me here, that if there is a need to do something to this road at this time, it's widening some shoulders. So if we found that it's needed immediately, we would then try to assess a fair share proportionality and let him say, and this is all speculation because we don't know yet because it's just a zone change, but we would look to see maybe he adds shoulders for the influence area around the intersection or something like that. We try not to, or I personally try not to get escrow if I can get a little bit of something built instead, because escrow waits too long. So the need right now for this road would be shoulders.
Okay, and that does answer my question. So, and I understand they're not the only people who are on the road would be coming from this development, but the fair share sounds, that answers my question and concern. Thank you.
Absolutely, we would do it that way. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. Yes, I just kind of want to ask a follow-up question on this because it's specifically about those shoulders. And, I think the phrase that you used is that the road is being used in a way that maybe it wasn't intended. But I am a bit curious if the road and the way we're using it has changed, or is this a change in our methods in determining what those need to be? Because I know shoulders are a problem through other areas as well, and I just don't know if that's been a shift in our criteria that we've recognized the need for that, or is it truly that it was previously a different type of road and we've moved it without making the improvements?
Based on the amount of traffic that's coming down the road. So in the past, maybe it was only used, say, as a collector roadway for the amount of traffic, and now it's being used maybe more as a minor arterial in the amount of ADT traffic. We've got a lot of roads like that across the county where there's higher amount of traffic loads, and so that's where the county then looks at improvements on those roads for widening out and things like that. If it's a large development and they've added a lot of traffic that exceeds the capacity of the roads or needs turn lanes, then that's where the potential improvements would come in, or fair share cost agreements and escrow would come in. One thing I know that we have been looking at with the county engineer is that there usually will be a developer that comes in and maybe they trip the traffic counts, or maybe they trip a turn lane or something to that effect, but then the deficiency has been existing for a long time, and so is it fair for that one last person then to be responsible for all the improvements as opposed to doing incremental improvements and getting potential escrow for the future improvements overall? So it is a challenge across the county in this regard. But we primarily will focus on the safety aspects, especially if there's turn lanes that are required, and if not, and we have definite criteria for that to identify those. The cross sections are a little bit more challenging.
Any further questions on transportation? I will just point out that the road impact fees are being paid and assessed as usual for this type of development, and that this is the very early rezone stage. So I think these questions are great and big picture thinking. And the application in front of us today is at the rezone point, and a lot of those other questions I think will be answered in further pieces of the process. Are there any further questions for on drainage, engineering, public works, transportation at this time? Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So before I ask the applicant to come up, I would just like to reiterate that this is the rezone application. There is a preliminary plan in review by the county currently, and once that review has been completed, it will come in front of your board again for a more in-depth review. At that time, we'll look at water, transportation, drainage in a larger aspect. So at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant, NES, to come up.
Thank you. Andrea Barlow with NES, representing the applicant. I will leave it on here, assuming mine is going to be equally corrupt, so we'll just go through it on this basis. So as you know, we're asking for an amendment. Here's a photograph of the site, just so you can get familiar with it. To RR5, the zone change criteria, I do want to emphasize these. It doesn't look like we have any people in the audience to object to this, so I will kind of go through things a little quicker. But what we emphasized at the Planning Commission was that these are the criteria we're considering now, which is basically compatibility with adjacent land uses and zoning and compatibility with the master plan. So just to give it some context, so we have the site, it's a number of different parcels. Apex Ranch Estates is wrapping around the site on the northwest corner, and then we have the Riata subdivision, which is located to the south and a little further east. There is a parcel here which is shown a little clearer on a future map, which is, it is zoned currently A35 as well, but it's completely landlocked by this development and the Riata subdivision. So we will be providing access to that property through our subdivision, as does the Riata subdivision, which I'll talk to a little bit more when we get a better map. So I think we talked a little bit about the zoning. This is the Apex Ranch Estates, which is zone PUD. That ranges from what I saw on the county assessors, from 3.1 acres up to 9.64 acres, with an average of slightly less than 5 acres. And 17 of the 21 lots in that subdivision are under 5 acres. So our opinion is providing a 5-acre lot subdivision is very compatible with that adjacent development and also the existing RR5 to the south. So with regard to the county master plan, we talked about the rural residential place type, which allows 5 acre per unit density. I think there's another part of that section of the master plan which is relevant. It says, as growth occurs, some rural areas may develop and transition to another place type. Leapfrog development should be discouraged by proactively permitting changing areas contiguous to existing development to another place type. So we would see this as with the request to rezone to RR5 being compatible with the adjacent RR5 and PUD development, and maybe transitioning to more of a suburb to a large lot residential place type, which is the next step down, which would be generally RR5 5-acre lot development. And the master plan encourages the county to be proactive in doing that. And then you've heard about the minimal change undeveloped. That really anticipates vacant sites being developed throughout the area. And I would say the same would apply to the landlocked area to the east of us. I would anticipate that in the future coming forward for for redevelopment. This is the map that shows it a little better. You can see that A35 parcel, completely landlocked. Riata subdivision has access points coming into it. This shows our preliminary plan. We will be showing access into that parcel as well. Homestead Ranch Regional Park is to the northeast, so that's not going to develop, but pretty much all the way around we have 5-acre lots. I wanted to show you the preliminary plan just to show how the lot sizes are pretty comparable with what's surrounding us to the northwest here and to the south. So we did have a neighborhood meeting on November 8th. About 35 people attended, and these were some of the questions they had. We answered quite a lot of them in the meeting. Obviously, not everybody was happy with our answers, and we had quite a few people attend the Planning Commission meeting. They expressed some of these concerns again, but the Planning Commission made it clear that this is not the time to talk about that level of detail, and we are in the process of a preliminary plan, which will come back to you. So we have answers to these questions, and we will address those when we get to that point in the process. The one thing I will add, though, based on the questions about traffic, is that the property line goes to the center of the current road. And so we will be dedicating 50 feet of right-of-way to the county for the future maintenance of that road. And that includes an additional 20 feet to accommodate the full 100-foot cross-section of the arterial designation. So again, I kept my presentation fairly short because I just wanted to reiterate the criteria, compatibility with the master plan and surrounding area. And we feel we've met that, so we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Okay.
None at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Has staff completed their presentation as well?
Yes, the staff presentation is complete.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to the public hearing portion of this presentation, of this hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak in support of this item? Here in the room? Are there any online? Okay, hearing none. Are there any in opposition to this application? Here in the room? Any online? We do have one. Okay, excellent. Do we have that person ready to go?
Hello.
Hello.
Participant is now joining.
Yes.
Thank you for calling in. I understand you are providing testimony in opposition to item number 9 today.
It was just going to be a comment, but now it may be a little slightly towards the opposition.
Okay. If you could please just introduce yourself and your 3 minutes will begin.
Okay.
Thank you. You can begin when you would like.
Okay.
We can hear you in the auditorium.
Fine. Thank you very much. My name's William Pickles. Can you hear me?
We can. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Madam Chairman, thank you. Commissioners, thank you. I was sorry I can't be there today. I work in D.C. and I just realized this hearing was taking place, and I wanted to offer a comment. But now it's slightly an oppositional comment, I believe. I want to address what was just said by the developer about the parcel of land owned on the east of Overlook and the southeast. I actually own that property. I have a half-a-mile fence they share with me. It is not landlocked. I have access through Riata Road. I'm right on the road. Nor have I been approached by anyone who wants to provide access to my, quote, landlocked land. It's not landlocked. And I have no plans to develop it, contrary to what the developer said. But the main reason I called, it's not because I'm objecting to what they want to do. I mean, good development is good for the county. I think it'll be good for property values out there for the people who live there. However, the real problem is the water issue. And I want to just raise and highlight that to you. I've got over 50 years out there, and my family's been there since the homestead days. Water is an extremely valuable and important commodity. There is insufficient water there. In fact, we sold the land to El Paso County, which you have built Homestead Park on. And as an anecdotal story, within a week after you started filling that pond on the park, and it's a beautiful pond, 2 of my ponds went dry. My windmill well went dry. So water is where you find it. I've drilled many wells out there. Most of the neighbors down in Riata to the south have drilled wells from 600 to 1,200 feet. And it's just a very difficult place to have water. And if anyone thinks they're going to buy a 5-acre parcel and have a pastoral life with a green lawn there, they really need to rethink it unless the builder has an alternative water source. I know the water districts are strict. I hope they hold the builder accountable for water, because it's going to impact not only new home buyers there, but the hundreds and hundreds of people who live there really do suffer a water problem. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not objecting necessarily, but I do want the builder to get his story straight, and I want the residents out there to have a good life, just not at the because of the future gains of others. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for taking the time to call in. Appreciate that. Are there any others wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, none in the room, none online. At this point, let's move back to the applicant to see if they would like to rebut anything said in the hearing.
Thank you, Andrea Barlow with NES. I'd first like to apologise to Mr. Pickle suggesting that he might want to sell his property for development, but I think given the surrounding area at some time in the future, it is still likely that it will develop, it maybe in the distant future. But with regard to the water questions, obviously that's not a required finding for a rezone, but we are in process of working on the water sufficiency with the state and getting an augmentation plan approved, which we're hoping will be approved next month. And it will be on wells and not a district. So, and that is the approach. Obviously, we do have the water rights and are working on that, and we'll be able to address that when we get to the preliminary plan hearing.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, at this point, I will, are there any more questions from commissioners or the applicant? Okay. At this point, I will declare the public hearing portion closed, a public input section closed, and bring it up here for discussion or motion. Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the applicant for a thorough presentation here and for answering those questions. The gentleman who spoke about water, and thank you for pointing out, we do have a process for evaluating water sufficiency, of course, and we do take that very seriously when we look at that sufficiency, but that's not one of our criteria today, though I do, expect that we will have that conversation in the not too distant future. But I think that to me it is clear that the criteria have been met, and so I would move approval of this item.
Second.
That has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate the call in and from the resident to the next to it, the development. The water issue is not what we're voting on today. I do think it clear amongst the surrounding area that this is going to be in the compliant and with our master plan, and that does look like it blends in well with the surrounding area, which is also has numerous 5-acre homes and down to, I think, 3 acres I saw also listed in. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Likewise, for the reasons that my colleagues have eloquently described, I also believe that this is in compliance with all of our criteria for a rezone today. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
and Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Congratulations. Item number 10.
Item number 10 is department and committee reports, non-action items, and there are none.
Item 11.
Item 11 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
Item 12.
Item number 12 is executive session. 12A, executive session requests pursuant to CRS 246402-4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions and related to the exercise of eminent domain by the Retreat Metropolitan Districts 1 through 2. Lori Sego, Senior Assistant County Attorney.
I move we go into executive session for the reasons stated on the record.
Second.
That has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf,
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
The Board of County Commissioners are back from item 12A. Mr.
I
County
move,
Attorney.
do I go first? I move we come out of executive session.
Second.
That has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And Commissioner Bremer votes aye. That passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board is exiting executive session where legal advice was provided and no decisions were made.
We are adjourned.